This video is based on the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and one of the greatest exponents of Stoic philosophy. Unlike what many imagine, he didn't live in palaces of peace. He ruled through wars, crises, betrayals, and plagues, and yet his mind remained firm. Marcus Aurelius didn't write for others, he wrote for himself. His writings were emotional survival exercises, mental maps to keep the soul steady when everything around him threatened to collapse. Today, more than 2,000 years later, his words remain urgent because fear, chaos, and anxiety are still alive, even if in new forms. In this video, you will discover 7 lessons from Marcus Aurelius on how to live without fear. It's not about eliminating fear, but about transforming the way you relate to it. Prepare to confront truths and perhaps to begin cultivating a mind that stands firm even when the world does not. Lesson 1. What threatens you is not what happens, but what you believe about what happens. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." This is one of the foundations of Stoicism. It's not events that disturb us, but the judgment we make about them. You don't feel fear because of the situation itself, but because of the meaning your mind attaches to it. That's why 2 people facing the same situation can react in opposite ways. One panics, the other breathes and moves forward. The difference doesn't lie in the event, but in the internal structure of each person. Fear arises when you believe you won't be able to deal with what's coming. And this thought, even without proof, produces the same effects as a real threat: tension, avoidance, paralysis. Marcus Aurelius trained his mind to separate what he could control from what he couldn't. And when it was beyond his control, he refused to suffer in advance. The lesson is clear. If you want to live more firmly, you must question your interpretations. Not everything that frightens you is truly dangerous. And much of what paralyzes you is only the mind's exaggeration. Lesson 2. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it. Marcus Aurelius never claimed that a wise person feels no fear. On the contrary, he acknowledged fear as part of the human condition, a natural response, unavoidable, but not definitive. What he teaches is that fear must never become a decision maker. It can appear, but it must not decide for you. Most people believe that courage is a feeling. They wait for a moment of strength, clarity, motivation. And while that moment doesn't arrive, they do nothing. But Marcus Aurelius, like all Stoics, flips the script. Courage doesn't come before action, it comes after. Courage is born when you choose to do what must be done even while trembling inside. It's standing your ground while your mind screams. It's acting not because you feel safe, but because staying stuck costs even more. He, as emperor, had to make life or death decisions without time, without guarantees, without emotional comfort. And still, he chose to act with integrity, guided by reason, not by anxiety. That's why he wrote to himself daily, "You were born to act with dignity, not to hide behind excuses." This lesson changes everything. How many times have you known what you needed to do, but stepped back? How often has fear convinced you it wasn't the right time, that you weren't ready, that something could go wrong? And what happened afterward? Probably nothing. Time passed, fear remained, and life moved on without you at the helm. Marcus Aurelius teaches, true cowardice doesn't lie in feeling fear, it lies in turning fear into an argument. You don't need to feel strong to act. You need to act with integrity, even without guarantees. And that is the kind of courage that changes destinies. Lesson 3. Most fears are created by imagination, not by reality. Marcus Aurelius observed with clarity, a great deal of what we fear never actually happens. And when it does, it rarely unfolds the way our mind imagined. The human being possesses a powerful imagination, and that is a gift. But when left untrained, that same imagination turns against us. It amplifies dangers, distorts facts, invents catastrophic outcomes, and in the end, you suffer not because of what's happening, but because of what could happen. An unguarded mind lives in a state of anxious anticipation. It wakes up projecting failure, rejection, loss. And these thoughts are not harmless. The body reacts to them as if they were real. You sweat, freeze, avoid, retreat. Stoicism calls this premature suffering. And Marcus Aurelius knew that the weight of imagined fear can be heavier than a real problem. He trained his mind to return to the present, to observe facts as they are, not as the mind transforms them. To him, clarity is the antidote to fear. How many times have you suffered for something that never happened? How many nights have you lost to imagined disasters that dissolved the next day? The fear born of imagination is seductive. It pretends to protect you, but in truth, it traps you. It convinces you that the worst is inevitable, when, in most cases, the worst exists only in your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius suggests a simple but powerful question. What exactly is happening right now? That question breaks the fog. It forces your mind to exit fiction and face reality. Because what paralyzes you is not life. It's the movie you're projecting onto it. Lesson 4. Other people's opinions are not a reliable guide for your life. Marcus Aurelius lived surrounded by advisors, senators, soldiers, flatterers, and traitors. Yet he wrote to himself as a reminder, give more weight to your own judgment than to the opinions of others. This lesson is brutally relevant today. We live in an age where external validation has become a form of emotional fuel. We post, compare, seek approval, and when it doesn't come, we begin to doubt our worth. But Stoicism points in the opposite direction. It tells us that a mind dependent on the gaze of others is condemned to instability. Today you're praised, tomorrow forgotten. Today you please, tomorrow you provoke. And if your center is outside yourself, you'll be dragged by every opinion that passes by. Marcus Aurelius trained his spirit to remain firm in the face of both criticism and praise. Because he knew that both can be traps if you lack inner clarity. This lesson isn't about arrogance, it's about identity. You must know who you are, what you value, what you're building, even if no one understands, even if they say you're wrong, even if they laugh. A steady mind is not loud. It is quietly grounded. It listens, considers, but does not bend to noise. How many decisions have you avoided for fear of seeming inadequate? How many paths have you delayed to avoid disappointing someone? How often have you silenced your own intuition just to maintain an image? Marcus Aurelius reminds us, life is far too short to be directed by voices that do not know your inner world. And living in fear of other people's opinions is wasting the only freedom that truly matters. The freedom to be who you are, with serenity. Lesson 5. Mental discipline is more important than controlling circumstances. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire in crisis. He couldn't control the wars, the betrayals, the plagues, or the volatile moods of those around him. But there was one thing he trained every single day to master: his own mind. He understood that human beings waste enormous energy trying to control the uncontrollable. We want to predict the future, guarantee others' behavior, keep everything in order, and in that attempt, we accumulate frustration, anxiety, and guilt. The Stoic message is clear. Suffering begins when you try to dominate what was never yours to control. For Marcus Aurelius, true freedom is not found in circumstances. It's found in your ability to organize your own thoughts, filter your judgments, and maintain inner clarity even when everything outside is falling apart. Mental discipline is what protects you from chaos. It won't prevent pain nor eliminate challenges, but it prevents you from magnifying your suffering with unnecessary thoughts. It allows you to respond with firmness instead of reacting with desperation, to reflect before deciding, to maintain integrity even when the environment invites you to lose yourself. The external world is unstable by nature. If your peace depends on it, you will never know peace. But if your peace is built from within, you begin to access what Marcus Aurelius called the fortress of the soul. Don't waste energy trying to control everything. Train how you respond. That is the hardest discipline and the most liberating. Lesson 6. Death should be remembered not to create fear, but to awaken urgency. Marcus Aurelius, even as emperor, meditated on death every day, not as a morbid obsession, but as a practice of existential clarity. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you think, say, and do." For the Stoics, death is not a tragedy. The tragedy is living as if time were infinite, as if there will always be a later for what truly matters, as if the essential could be postponed without consequence. The fear of death, in the Stoic view, does not arise from finitude itself, but from the awareness that we are not living fully. That's why it must be remembered, because by remembering death, you reconcile with the urgency of life. How many things have you been postponing? How many feelings left unspoken, choices avoided, truths delayed? Death, when contemplated with sobriety, doesn't create despair, it creates focus. Marcus Aurelius used this thought to purge his mind of the unnecessary. He knew that remembering death brings everything back into proportion. What feels heavy today may become small. What is essential rises to the surface. You don't control how much time you have left, but you can control the value you give to every moment. This is one of the most transformative lessons in Stoicism. Don't live in fear of dying. Live in such a way that if death came now, you would not be ashamed of the life you led. Lesson 7. Living without fear means living with self-awareness, not denying reality. Many people confuse living without fear with insensitivity. They think it means becoming hard, closed, indifferent to everything. But Marcus Aurelius saw it differently. For him, to live without fear is to live with awareness. It means seeing the world as it truly is, imperfect, unstable, inevitably painful, and still choosing to remain upright. It's not about denying suffering, but about understanding that it doesn't have to define you. It's not about ignoring risk, but about refusing to let it dictate your actions. To live with awareness is to observe your thoughts, notice your patterns, and choose your responses. It's to be present, to recognize what you feel, and still decide what to do with what you feel. Marcus Aurelius knew that the chaos outside could never be eliminated, but our response to it can be trained, and that's the key. Fear feeds on inner disarray. The more distant you are from yourself, the more vulnerable you are to the world. That's why he advocated cultivating a mind that is strong, still, silent. A mind that doesn't get seduced by promises or thrown off by threats. A mind that accepts that everything outside is unstable, but that what is built within can endure. Living without fear, then, does not mean denying reality. It means crossing through it with clarity. It means no longer running, no longer delaying. It means becoming someone who doesn't need the world to be calm in order to find peace within. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to appear strong. He wrote to remind himself who he needed to be, even when everything around him demanded the opposite. He shows us that fear is not the enemy. The enemy is the habit of hiding. It's the silence you maintain in front of what needs to be said. It's the paralysis you disguise with socially acceptable excuses. Fear, when looked at directly, reveals itself to be smaller than it seemed. But as long as you avoid the confrontation, it grows inside your mind until it feels invincible. Marcus Aurelius doesn't invite you to be cold, distant, or numb. He invites you to be whole, conscious, and dignified in the face of life. And that only becomes possible when you stop waiting for ideal conditions and start acting with integrity in the chaos you have today. If any of these lessons spoke to you, write in the comments, "I choose to live with steadiness." Share this video with someone who is being dominated by fear and needs to reclaim their center. And if you want to continue this journey, subscribe and turn on the notifications. Remember, living with courage doesn't mean feeling no fear. It means not allowing fear to decide who you will become.